Welcome to this Behind the Board. We're going to be talking about mixing drums. Again, we're going to be talking about aux buses and getting levels now. So we're going to be consolidating sounds and making this sound good. So let's get started on that right away. So as you can see, as you're probably wondering, we have 3 kicks. How are we going to get them to sound like one and really make them smooth? What we're going to do is create an aux bus for these kicks to go to. So go ahead to Track, New, and create one mono aux bus. We could do a mono aux bus because everything's going right up the middle, 1, 2. We don't need a stereo aux bus for this yet. So create that, label it your kick bus, and okay that. Now we're going to give it an input. We'll make the input bus 1. So it's a capital bus, and remember that I mentioned this before. It's completely different if it says bus with a capital or if it says bus with a lowercase. So if you run into a situation where you're going out bus 1 with a lowercase and trying to get into a bus 1 with a capital, it will not work at all. So make sure you understand that is a computer code type of thing, but just keep it in mind because it will happen to you. So bus 1 is where we're going. Now we're going to bus all of these guys out the bus 1. Remember, our ins are over our outs, so we want to go out bus 1, and our ins are over our outs here because it's going in bus 1 into our kick bus. So you could click the top kick, hold shift, click the bottom kick, and hold your shift and your option button. Click, remember, ins over outs, so click your outs, go to bus, and go to 1. When you're holding the shift and the alt option button, it will affect everything that you have highlighted like we just did. All right, so fantastic. So now we want to make what I call the macro adjustments. It's the larger adjustments that affect more than one thing. We've been making these little tiny micro adjustments, and they're making a difference, but they're making small differences piece by piece, and now we're going to make the big differences. So we have this all headed into here, and we're going first to EQ it. Go to plugin EQ, EQ37 band, and we'll get started. So we're no longer trying to pull out certain little spots that are popping out to us. We're trying to make a soft, smooth EQ that sounds fantastic for us. So we'll listen, see what we think we need, and adjust this EQ that way. I'm just going to listen to the bass drum, so I'll solo that out. And you could solo your kick bus out too. There's a pretty cool thing you could do with these buses too. If you hold your command button and click solo, it will ignore the normal mute command that happens when other things are soloed. So now I don't have to press solo. It's not going to just automatically mute when other things are soloed. Pretty cool to do on bus tracks because it just speeds up your workflow a little bit. All right, so we got a real boomy sound. I'd like to get a little more high end out of it. So I'm actually going to use this high frequency shelf coming down to around 2K and just pick it up a tiny bit, about 1.4. We got a little bit of slap. Let's bring it all the way. Not bad at all. I'm going to make some adjustments to everything. This first kick is kind of popping out a little too much. I'm going to take that down. That's starting to feel a lot better for me. Let's find a little area in the low end, like the low mid area, so we could add a little bit more punch to it. A little bit more thud to it would probably be the best way to explain it. Right there feels great for me. If you're having trouble hearing what you're doing, just pick it up a lot more and then adjust it back down. Right there's a little too high for the thud sound. This will probably be too boomy. Real boomy down there. So I just picked right in between around this area. And I just picked it up maybe around 2. And remember, you can do this negatively instead. That'd be completely fine. Let's make sure we're not redlining. That we look great. And now, this is even more important. We want to compress all 3 of these sounds together. We don't want any of them really sticking out too much. So now that we made it into a single sound, let's compress this single sound here with the dynamic 3 compressor limiter. And we could start off with that factory default that worked so nice for us before, that kick thump, and see what we got going. Wow, I really don't want to change much. That sounds terrific. I'm just going to bring the threshold up a little bit, making a real nice sounding bass drum here. It's just redlining this a lot. I'm just going to go to the plugin before it. Remember that these plugins are linear. This one happens before that one. I'm going to bring my output on this one down a little bit so that we don't redline the compressor so much. I'm bringing it down to -3. Should be okay with our compressor now. Not bad, actually. It looks like we have a gain makeup in there. Let me go back and just bring this back to its 0, and we'll fix it within this gain makeup, because the gain makeup must have been what was redlining us. Let's bring that down. That's the sort of thing you want to do with gain makeup. You see your in and your out are almost the same area now. They're hitting at about the same area. So I brought it down 2 dB, no more redlining, and it's about the same as the in and the out. And our gain reduction really is kind of hitting around that area anyway. You can see it to the max it's going to is to -3. You could even take this down more if you'd like to. But we have no redlining, so I'm happy with that. And we made ourselves a kick bus. So now we have all those sounds sounding like one big, fantastic bass drum, and that's exactly what we want. Let's do the same things for our snare drums. So we'll click the last snare drum. We'll go over to track new. We'll create a single mono aux track. Name it snare bus. Got it. Okay, we'll bring that one in bus 2. And that means we want these 3 guys. Hold your shift, and then hold your shift and your alt option button, and bring yourself in bus 2. Okay, remember ins are over out, so these are each going out bus 2, out bus 2, out bus 2, into our snare bus 2. That's exactly what we want to do. Let's EQ it first, see if we want to add more pop or anything like that. And, you know, if you're really liking how these snares are meshed and everything like that, you don't have to add an EQ here. You could put it on, mess around a little bit. If it sounds great, forget it. Just get rid of it. It's not necessary to keep adding these EQs. I just like to check. I like to check over and over again, make sure everything sounds good. I'm going to solo these out and hold my command with solo here. That sounds terrific to me, but I want to add a little bit more body in there, so something around here. And like I said, if you really want to find your spot, lift it up real high first, find out where all the body's coming from, and then bring it back down just to add a little more body rather than a ton. So that's where the body is, so right around 250 hertz. So I'm going to bring the gain down on that a little bit, probably bring it to about 1.5. So we added a little body to that snare drum now. Fantastic, exactly what we want to do. Now on our snare bus, we're going to do our compression as well. So open up your compressor plugin in your dynamics menu. And here we go with this. I like to kind of hit it kind of hard here. Not too hard. We don't want that much gain reduction, but I do like to bring the ratio up a little bit on this, maybe to 4 instead of where it was set over at 2 or 3 where it starts. But we can release that knee a little bit, bring that knee up to around 8. So we get a little bit softer compression, even though we're compressing a little harder than the default. And we'll bring the attack down to around 200 US, and the release up to about 170 milliseconds. We'll find our threshold on the fly here. All right, fantastic. That's exactly what we want to do. See, I'm not doing a lot here. If the snare drum was really getting louder and softer at the point where it was getting you a little uncomfortable and it was hard to mix in, you could just bring the threshold down and you'll have a lot more compression there, a lot more control, but it feels very controlled. So I don't want to go too nuts on it. I really liked how it sounded to begin with, so you don't go too crazy when you like it already. So let's move on now. There's nothing else that is layered sounds like that. So the rest of it needs to be sent to a drum bus. So let's make a drum bus. We'll click our room mic. We'll go to track, new, and we'll make now a stereo aux track. It's stereo because we have those overheads, those toms, all these panned things in there. We'll call this drum bus. We'll get an input for the drum bus. Now when we pick an input for the drum bus, we have to choose two. We want bus 3 and 4, not just a single one, because we have two different signals coming in. We have the left signal and the right signal. So no matter what you're sending out, it has to be out bus 3 and 4. So you take everything that we didn't send to the snare or to the kick bus, and you do that by clicking, holding shift, and then clicking the highest one. I click the room, I hold shift, click the rack down. Now I'll click shift, my alt option button, and go to my outs. Remember, ins are over outs. Go to your outs and go to bus 3, 4. Now that's all being sent to bus 3, 4. All right, but we're not done yet with our busing. Let's bus a little bit more because we want these snares now to enter this drum bus as well. We want to bring everything together and EQ and compress together there. So we'll go out bus 3, 4 on our snare bus, and we'll go up to our bass drum bus, our kick bus, and bus 3, 4 there as well. So it's starting to get a little confusing here, but just follow the signal flow. Let's check out what's happening with this first kick. The kick is getting bussed out 1. It's coming into our kick bus, bus in 1, going through this EQ, this compressor, getting bussed out 3, 4, and it's heading down to our drum bus, which is accepting bus 3, 4, and now we're going to EQ and compress it. So all the tracks that have to do with drums wind up on this drum bus track at the end. So here we go with a multi-channel EQ 7-band. And we'll see if we want to make any changes to this here as we get levels now. Great. So let's start setting our levels a little bit because I don't really want to make changes with the EQ until I'm starting to really like how the drums are feeling. So keep your buses at 0, but move everything else down to negative infinity. It might be quicker for you to just press the all, bring everything down to negative infinity, and click off the all group, and then bring your buses back to 0. That's a better bet, right? Okay, so there we are. Let's go to our overhead. I like to start with the overheads. You get them set to a nice level. I think they're the most important part of the drums. They encompass everything. We get them to a nice level. We like where they feel, and then we bring everything around it to fill in all the empty space. So we'll start with the overheads here. You could do this in your mixer window if you want to. Remember, command equals or window mixer, and you could do it down here if you like that more horizontal look. I'm just going to do it in the edit window for now so you could really see what I'm doing here. So here we are. I just set them both to 0. That's how they were recorded, and that's how I want to start. I want to start them set at 0, and we'll mix everything else in nicely with it. Let's start with the room mic next. Well, probably will not go all the way up to 0. We don't want too much of that sound in there. We want it to add some flavor. Right about there sounds terrific to me. So we're going to put it right there. It's a -8 for me. Let's move over to our kick drum. Let's start adding those guys in. We had a pretty cool balance going on, but I want to mix this all together. So let's start with our regular kick. Let's add in some of that fat, some of that bottom. And let's add in some of that punch. All right, sounds terrific. Let's start working with the snare drum. We'll add in the regular one. And we'll add in the fat last. I like to take a look at the drum bus while I'm doing this, just see if I'm going a little too heavy on the bass drum or the snare drum, because I'm really feeling the sound or something like that. It looks like my bass drum might be a little hot here. Take a look. So you could see that the bass drums are a little hotter than the snares. We want to kind of make things a little more uniform if we can, so things don't pop up too much. We will eventually compress this drum bus, and that will help make it uniform, but I actually want to do this without compression first so the compressor doesn't have to work overtime for us. Now, instead of trying to just do the ratios here and bring these down in equal amount or make a group for it, we already have this kick bus here. We could just bring that down a tiny bit. Let's bring that down 3 dBs and see what it sounds like. I got it at 2.6 now. Now we're getting a much more uniform sound right there. Perfect. Let's move on to our rack tom and our floor tom. Okay. Here we have a little fill within the song. Let's try right here. I'm going to just take a shot in the dark at -5 right now. I could probably use a little more and bring it up to 0. Let's do the same thing with the floor. 0 going to work. A little too hot on that floor tom. Bring that down a little. Maybe we could go a little higher on the rack tom. You can see I'm making a lot of judgment calls right now, and you might have different judgments. That's absolutely fine. Just get it sounding great to you. After we did all this work with our EQs and our dynamic compressors, now really focus in on getting a nice balance here. I want to see if this is too loud in the bridge section. Feels pretty good. We could adjust this later as we bring in the guitars. If it's too loud in this bridge section, we could pull it down. We have clip gain to work with, a bunch of other stuff to get into as we continue this mix. So I was working right around the 155 area if you had trouble finding this bridge section here. But let's also take one look at this build. I want to see if the floor tom is coming up and sounding good here too. I'm pretty happy with that floor tom there as well. Looking fantastic. Okay, so we have everything we want mixed in here. Now we want to affect the entirety of the drum sound. I'm going to play back. I don't think there'll be a lot to EQ at this point. Maybe when we're working with the rest of the tracks and we're feeling maybe the drums have too low of a sound to them or something, we could do a little EQ there. But right now, we'll see if we need maybe a little bit more punch or a little bit more pop. Let's listen back and start messing with the EQ a tiny bit. So right around there is where a lot of our pop is coming from. So I'm going to just add a tiny, tiny bit more pop because it has a lot of bass in it right now. So I'm just going to add 1 dB to that section. I have my Q on 1, and we're at frequency 200 kilohertz. Good, I feel good about that. Now we'll move over to a multi-channel dynamic plug-in. It will be our compressor. Let's take a look at that guy. And now we'll compress a bit. We could use one of these drum comps to start with. If they have one, they might have a drum comp. Let's see. Yep, we can use one of these drum comps to start with and start affecting it from there. Let's take a listen to what that sounds like. All right, this is over compressing it. like crazy. You see how much gain they have to make up. So this is what they're thinking they'd like to do. And it might be something that you'd like to do. You will want it to be a little over compressed. That's fine. You'll develop your style as a producer. I want it to be a little more natural. So I'm going to bring up the threshold, bring down the gain makeup, and hopefully get a little less gain reduction as well. This release is a little fast for me. I'm going to bring the release up to maybe 100. And I'll bring the attack down to 10 milliseconds. My ratio looks good. My knee is nice and soft. Let's see if that's feeling good. You can see we just beefed it up a little bit. It feels a little bit better, but that's what we did over and over again. And now this doesn't sound like the original track we have. It sounds like a cleaner, better sounding drum track. So stay tuned with me, because we're about to do something pretty fun and really finish up this drum mix. We're going to go ahead and do some reverb stuff and really get this sounding like it's complete. So thanks for being with me on this one, and I'll see you on the next one.